Hi, welcome back, and I'd like to take you on a journey. This is a part of the continuation of Chapter 5, and I'd like to introduce you to somebody, a friend of mine, who agreed to help us demonstrate what it really means to go through and understand human behavior. So my friend Tami is going to take some time out from her job and be able to show you what goes through her mind as a typical consumer when she has to buy shoes. Now, you might laugh and go, "Oh, O'Malley, what are you doing here?" The answer is, wait till you see how consumer behavior really impacts Tami, but also look at the way it impacts you. When you start making a purchase, you go through a process, very much like Tami's going through. So Tami's agreed to take some time out from her job. She's going to introduce herself to you, and she's going to basically take you through a process of the customer journey. So Tami goes shoe shopping. Let's go. So Tami is a very lucky girl. She graduates from school in June and has moved to New York City for her dream job. And here's a little bit about Tami that I think you should know. Tami is 22 years old. She graduated from Oklahoma University with a BA degree in communications and a minor in business. She was president of her sorority, worked in a college radio station to help off some of her college expenses. She identifies herself as a fashion leader. She's very active on Instagram, Pinterest, and Snapchat. Although she has a Facebook account, that's so her grandmother can follow her and probably her mother to make sure that she's okay in New York City. She goes to the gym and takes yoga classes 3 times a week and tries to eat only organic food. Sound familiar? Welcome to a lot of young ladies coming to New York City. So I'm going to introduce you to a term, fashionista. Okay, it's not really a term per se, but really what it is. And if you ever watched any of the fashion shows, this is the way a lot of times that Tami identifies herself as member of a subgroup, okay? She's a fashionista. She loves clothing and she's a devoted follower of fashion. That means she has a propensity for all things fashion. She looks at it, she dreams about it, she's watched it since she was a child. And where has she developed, in some cases, her mindset around this? And certainly when you think about fashion, it is not a frivolous ideal. It is a tremendous business. If you think about the movie The Devil Wears Prada, which I highly recommend as a great movie, what's really fun is you realize that this is very much a mindset. But again, Tami is only one mindset. There are others. So we're just going to use Tami as fashionista, but follow along with the logic. So more information about Tami. She lives with 2 roommates in Astoria, although she wanted to live in Williamsburg. Hey, cost, okay? Dad agreed to help her with the rent. Apple 10 is her current phone of choice. Of course, it's very fashionable and it's very updated. And she started her dream career at, where would you think? Tami's a very, very lucky girl. She started at Vogue. Okay? For a fashionista, she is at the peak of every place she wanted to be. So those of you who know Vogue, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is the Bible of fashion. And before it's in fashion, it's in Vogue. And that very much is important to the story because Vogue is the world's #1 magazine and a flagship product of the Condé Nast Empire. Vogue is the Bible of fashion. So what does Vogue do? Vogue attracts people who have like-mindedness and who believe and understand the world of fashion and can interpret it. And quite frankly, they are very, very motivated to this book. This has tremendous readership, has an extensive list of people, predominantly women, who every month get this Bible of fashion and they look at it. And here's the difference with Vogue. They don't look at it, they devour it. Okay, and that's the difference in the wording that I want to be able to say here. They don't look at Vogue as a magazine. They look at Vogue as an extension of their inner core. This magazine really helps embody them. And this is very important because, again, the magazine understands who their target audience and customers are. So they tailor their editorial to these predominantly women who really enjoy the fashion world. Now, what's interesting is here's Tami, and let me just move here for 1 second. Tami is again started out at Vogue. She's the assistant to the assistant. Okay, she wants to fit in. Her dream is to move up to an editorial role. This is very important when you think about Vogue. The Bible of fashion actually dictates taste, popular culture to the masses. And they do that anywhere from a year to 6 months before some of that fashion hits the stores or the runway or things of this nature. This is why Vogue is so important, because it doesn't just report on fashion, it helps create fashion. It helped create the trend. Okay? She was the main influencer in her former college subculture, but now things have changed. And what has changed is Tami has a problem. Okay? And again, she's an influencer. She follows fashion. Tami's problems are shoes. Now, you're going to laugh, and let me just move here for 1 second and talk about the fashion world, and especially Vogue. By the way, that's Tami, and that's her shoe. Now, you can say that Tami is being judged by the peer group that she values, okay, and this is what consumer behavior is about, is that it could be for you who are not part of trying to be in the aspirational role, it could be irrational. Yes, it can, okay? It could be artificial. Yes, it can. It could be a false sense of worth, perhaps. However, when you start looking about consumer behavior and you start thinking about target audiences, whether or not you think it's irrational or artificial isn't important, because what you are trying to do as good marketers is understand the mindset of the target audience. If Tami's got a problem with shoes, and shoes are indicative of perhaps the subculture that she wishes to join, and they use that as a judgment as much as any other subculture uses toys and tools and words and language to get you to be in or out, Tami's got a problem. And the reason is because she's working with people who really evaluate shoes. It's not the shoe per se, it's how she wears the shoe. Is she somebody that can see fashion in the future as opposed to just following? Again, this is the criteria of the subgroup that she wants to join. And subgroup is not a nasty word. So if we go back to this chart for 1 minute and we think about really what some characteristics affect consumer behavior, we will notice subculture. Okay? So subculture here is a group that is, again, have like minds and needs, values, and they have a whole language. They have a different mindset. And subculture could be anything. So though I'm talking about fashion, it could be kids who follow basketball. It could be people who follow NASCAR. It could be people who follow football. It could be people who are politically one way or the other, right or left, very right, very left. There's a subculture that involves. It could be the person who wishes to join the country club. It could be the person who wishes to make sure that the young kid walking down the street has to have the right sneaker on. If it doesn't have the right sneaker, he's not going to be big in the subculture that he's looking for. So you're really talking about, again, the same chart. You get groups, perhaps family isn't important here, but it could be roles and status, and it's all this situation all coming together with Tami. So Tami has to do something, and this is what becomes very important about consumer behavior. And I'm going to stop here and continue with Tami as long as we understand that Tami now has dissonance. I'll leave you here, and I'll pick it up in 2 seconds.